Something we want to talk about.
Conspiracy theory that Charlie Kirk may have actually been killed by his Rode microphone, which was rigged with an explosive.
A secret list claimed Bill and Hillary Clinton were connected to dozens of mysterious deaths.
All the news is already owned by just these 6 media companies, meaning Comcast, Disney, AT&T, Paramount, Sony, and Fox.
Oswald was arrested, but got shot and killed on live TV 2 days later. Many believe there was more to the story.
Documents that would put lives at risk.
Know who these guys are? In 1994, he exposed their entire system and predicted 2026 perfectly. Allegedly, this is true. But you watch the video to the end and let me know in the comment section. Let's find out who these power players are. For educational and entertainment purposes only. Don't get any ideas.
And I want to tell you that one of the biggest things I discovered in my work was the existence of a supranational committee composed of 300 men called the Committee of 300, also known in intelligence circles as the Olympians.
300 people you've never heard of. They don't hold office, they don't give speeches, they don't campaign, they don't need your vote. And he's not talking about the secret societies you've heard 100 times. This is what the headlines never touch.
This is the committee that runs the world. Now, in my book, The Committee of 300, I name every one of them. This is not a book that talks about they. It gives you specifics.
Now, this is one of those videos that rarely stays visible for long. But what you're about to watch will explain a lot of the strange things happening in the world right now. So, let's get right into it.
Who and what is the Committee of 300? Well, I've dealt with that. I've told you this is a supranational body that knows no boundaries, respects the laws of no countries. The first time that they were publicly announced was by a German socialist by the name of Walter Rathenau. Now, I'll give you some background of Walter Rathenau. He was the financial advisor to the Kaiser of Germany, and he was also the financial advisor to the Rothschilds, the French family Rothschild. So he must have known what he's talking about. He made an astonishing statement in 1934. He said, there is a committee of 300 men that rule the world. They are known only to each other, and nothing happens without their consent.
This isn't about symbols, or handshakes, or a club everyone already suspects. This is the top of the chain. At least that's his claim. The structure nobody sees. And as this man will explain, every organization has its place. They all fit into a hierarchy. But at the very top, 300 people. Pay attention to this part.
I came across this quite by accident when I was serving in Africa, in Angola, and I was given a series of documents which were only supposed to be handed in to top-level people. They were what we called above the top level of classification of intelligence documents. And there I discovered that whilst I thought I was in Africa fighting against the invasion of the communists, I was in fact fighting to introduce socialist regimes in the black African countries, and that I was actually working for a committee called the Committee of 300, also known in intelligence circles as the Olympians.
This isn't someone guessing from the sidelines. He's describing a moment where the story didn't match the mission. He thought he was fighting one enemy. Then he claims he realized he was building something else entirely. And that raised a different kind of question. Not who's in charge, but how high the chain really goes. His name is Dr. John Coleman. And he frames this as a 25-year-old investigation shaped by intelligence-level access. Let's keep going.
In 1986, I wrote a work called Mind Control, Metaphysics, Extremely Low Frequency Radiation, and Weather Modifications. And in that work, July the 8th, 1986, I said that the top-level intelligence organization in the United States was the National Reconnaissance Office, far bigger than the CIA and any of the other intelligence agencies. And by the way, we have about 10 different ones in the United States. I even had the audacity to give the address of this organization. 3 weeks ago, Mr. Sam Donaldson, the gentleman who wears that beautiful toupee so effectively, he came on with the program in prime time, and he said, this is one of the biggest scoops that ABC has ever had. And he told about the National Reconnaissance Organization. The exact same thing that I published 8 years earlier. I tell you this to set the stage so that you'll understand I do have some experience and that I know that of which I speak.
There's some serious red flags with this guy. Never heard of him before. That being said, I think he's worth looking into. He's worth researching. The other thing is, if this committee of 300 exists, the Olympian Committee or whatever, how do you know about them? How do you know about them? What's so special about you, right? Like, it's always, I've discovered this thing and I'm so great and I know all the secrets and I've got all the answers. And it's like, if you're the only one who's got all the answers, why wouldn't these guys, and they're so powerful, why wouldn't they just kill you? They'd have you whacked, right? They would know you know, especially when you're giving talks on a freaking subject. So to just go have you whacked. I just don't buy it. This just doesn't, a lot of holes I see here. That being said, overall, high level, like I said in the very beginning, I do believe stuff like this is going on. I think it's not as simple as, oh, here's the committee and here's every member on the committee, right? Like, that's probably not how it's working. It's probably a little more complex like that. Closest thing I think it resembles, to make it easy for people to wrap their heads around, is something like Game of Thrones. There's different groups of people that are united around certain objectives, and they compete against one another for access to resources, for access to influential people, for this, that, and the other. And they're playing, you know, the game of houses, the Game of Thrones. And that being said, they'll always unite together to stop any threat to their overall power, to the status quo. And so that's what I think it's more like than some one single committee. But it's always interesting to find out about new characters who are out there talking about this kind of stuff. I'm interested. I might go look up his book. But yeah, I don't buy this guy. Seems sketchy to me.
What you just saw is the main debating chamber of the UK Parliament. The person in the black robe who sits in front and maintains order is called the Speaker of the House of Commons. He speaks to the MPs and all the politics in the room and orders them. And you just saw him do a Masonic handshake. Now, what I'm about to show you does not come from me. It comes from the Satanic Bible of Anton LaVey. Let's see what he has to say about Freemasonry. Masonic orders have contained the most influential men in many governments, and virtually every occult order has many Masonic roots. And that is on page 78. The handshake you saw is the apprentice to the Fellowcraft handshake that you saw, proving that Freemasonry has infiltrated government and UK politics.
I think the Church of Satan is just a little goofy. At least the branch started by Anton LaVey. I think he would admit that himself. It's more satire than anything. So don't put too much stock into that. That being said, the idea that Freemasonry has infiltrated UK politics is also a little of a goofy statement to make. Freemasonry, I'm pretty sure, started in the UK. And it's a very influential and old fraternity, so there's no doubt that there's Masons involved at the highest levels of UK politics. Definitely the case. Same thing in the United States. There's been several Masonic presidents. George Washington was a Mason. Benjamin Franklin was a Mason. Many founding fathers were involved in Freemasonry. So that's not debatable. They're definitely involved. And that does appear to be a Masonic handshake from the little I know about it. But doesn't mean that they're like plotting something. I mean, we've talked about this before. There was a time, I don't know about the UK, but in the US, there was a time where you knew a Mason. Your neighbor was a Mason, your uncle, your cousin, someone in the family or near your community was a Mason. It's like old guys doing goofy stuff in a convention hall, across town. Like, they're not ruling the world. Are there some really high level people involved in certain lodges? For sure. I mean, especially on the East Coast, if you're a Mason in Virginia, probably very different than if you're a Mason in Montana. But is there some sort of like global conspiracy of Masons to run things? I don't think so. Doesn't really hold water.
Wow. When we started talking about releasing the Epstein files, I'm like, this is a no-brainer. President Trump will just roll them out on a big cart himself. Stacks and stacks and stacks of the Epstein files, because obviously Bill Clinton is all in there and Hillary Clinton. That's what I had been told all along, right? Well, it was the most shocking thing when I sat in a conference meeting and I learned that the president didn't want to release the Epstein files. I was like, what? Yeah, come to find out, he was very much against it.
I don't really care about the political angle. I don't care about your political beliefs, right? Like, there was a promise, that promise was not kept. I don't care who said, she said, that said, it doesn't matter, right? Like, this was an implied promise of the campaign that has not been upheld. You need to ask why.
Here, take your bread and circus.
Shit really is biblical, man.
It is. It's a war of good and evil. And I knew this was a war in good and evil when I saw the darkest thing in the files. I used to think that this was a criminal organization that was very sophisticated. And it is. But it's deeper than that. This is a good and evil issue. There was an email. I gotta be careful. There was an email between Epstein and an associate, and it's redacted who this associate is, where Epstein recounts how a girl told him that she believed while in her bed that God protected her and that Jesus was watching over her. And then he says, whoops. And the person replies, you should dress up like him, being Jesus, the next time you see her.
I don't go in for this kind of good and evil stuff too much, to be honest with you. I know a lot of people do. That's fine. One thing I'll say is if those girls had faith and thought God was protecting them, all the better for it. I mean, I can only hope that's the case. But if you want to talk about the detail of what was said here, I think more than likely that's some really sick, disgusting POS human beings. I don't even like to use the term human beings. Screwing with the minds of their victims more than anything. I don't know that there's a lot of meat on the bone here, but again, if those girls believed that God was helping them and that helped ease what they went through, I can only hope that's the case.
Conspiracy theory, right? They always end up being true. But conspiracy theory that Charlie Kirk may have actually been killed by his Rode microphone, which was rigged with an explosive. Now, I have always thought there was something there, okay? It was a theory that was at first posited by an ex-user named John Bray, and you should go down that rabbit hole. He has done so much work on this. Really, truly, he has worked on this since September. He brought it to my attention when we were the people who exclusively revealed the pictures from the inside of the SUV that carried Charlie to the hospital. And John Bray reached out to me at that time and he said, hey, that's the piece of evidence that I'm looking for, the shattered plastic from Charlie's Rode microphone. Now, before we get there, let me at first back up and explain to you what this theory is, because there are probably a lot of people out there who are like me, like Ashley in the control room, who are just technologically challenged, right? Tons of people like us girlies who don't really care that much about how microphones operate and what styles and shapes they come in and what function they serve. I mean, if you don't work in tech, why would you know any of this stuff, actually? And so it's important to just always focus on the little details so you can follow along when we say Charlie's Rode microphone. So Charlie's preference was always, always, always to have a handheld mic, okay? Like this microphone, holding it on stage. Very simple. Same exact same as me. So when we toured together, the two of us always requested two handhelds. So some of the reasons we kind of make the joke, you don't really know what to do with your hands. We like to move around a lot. We're expressive. And it's just nice to have a handheld mic in your hand. And then you only have to worry about one hand. And you often would switch the mic. It kind of gives you something to do with your hands. Now, at this particular event on September 10th, and we did go backward, and it seems to me that this new installment of him having two mics may have began during his fall 2024 You're Being Brainwashed tour. Ironically, the very first tour that I did not do alongside Charlie because of the increasing pressure that was coming from his Zionists. Once I got fired from the Daily Wire, I didn't bend the knee, and then Charlie started getting harassed by Zionists, and we had to put our tour on ice because he was getting attacked. Anyway, it was during that tour, as far as we can see, that suddenly Charlie started using not just his handheld, but also a wireless microphone on top of it. Okay, so we're circling here. You can see, I'm going to explain what you're looking at, but you can also see he's holding a handheld. That's two mics. They're functionally the same. One is wireless and one is a handheld. To be fair here, there could be some internal reason why they began to do this, but I can tell you definitively that is not how it was always done. I didn't have two mics on me when I was touring at Turning Point USA. Now, there is a mashup video of Charlie's 2024 events, and you can actually see this. We're going to scrub through very quickly that he goes from just having his handheld to suddenly having that redundancy built in of two microphones. I'm going to show you that here. Here's the, Prove Me Wrong event. You can see he's got the handheld. He doesn't have the wireless mic clipped onto him. Here is you can scroll through to the second debate. Yep, here's another one. He's got the handheld. There is no, you can play that a little bit so they can see his arm move around if you want, Sky, that he doesn't have a microphone that's also being clipped onto him. And then you can see come 2000, at the end, the You're Being Brainwashed tour, we're going to scroll through here. I don't know when exactly this event was, but I do know this was his fall 2024. Now you see he's got a Rode microphone clipped.
I don't have much to say here because it's so evolving and frankly heated. But the one thing I'll say is that, she keeps using the term road. Like you can see on the screen there, it's spelt wrong, like roads, like the road you drive on. Rode is a brand name of microphone, and it's RODE. I use one myself. There's many different types of Rode microphones. So the microphone that just goes on your chest is not in and of itself a Rode microphone. Rode is the brand name. What's pinned to his chest, I think, is what's called a lavalier. I will say that they may have changed their approach at some point, but I don't think it's uncommon, especially for big high-level events like this, to have two microphones. I don't know that that's a totally uncommon practice. What is strange is the shift in approach. So that is something that, potentially just warrants looking into further. But just the fact that he's wearing two microphones doesn't necessarily mean something, right? That doesn't necessarily mean there's something there just on that fact alone. Many reasons for that. Just pure redundancy. Two, the microphone could be for speaking out into the crowd, while this one is better recording better audio of Charlie's voice for when they make clips and videos that they post, right? So this is a very dynamic operation. Having two microphones doesn't seem that crazy to me. It's definitely pretty a standard operating procedure in my opinion. Again, it's the switch in approach that is more questionable. So you need to go look at what happened around that date. It could be a new media company, a consultant, I don't know, right? There's plenty of legitimate explanations for that as well. I just don't know that anyone's looked into that, but I think that is the road of investigation that is worth more than just a two microphone point.
Did you know that throughout the 1990s, a secret list claimed Bill and Hillary Clinton were connected to dozens of mysterious deaths? This became known as the Clinton body count. It all started when Vincent Foster, a close friend of the Clintons, was found dead in 1993. Officials ruled it suicide, but conspiracy theorists insisted he was murdered to hide secrets about the Whitewater scandal. Then came more deaths. Ron Brown, the Commerce Secretary, died in a plane crash in 1996 while under investigation for corruption. Arkansas state troopers who had protected Clinton also died in suspicious accidents. The list kept growing on right-wing radio shows and early internet forums. Every car crash, plane accident, or suicide involving someone who knew the Clintons was added to the count. Conspiracy theorists claimed witnesses were being silenced and evidence destroyed. Hillary Clinton became the main target, painted as the mastermind of a ruthless political machine that eliminated anyone who posed a threat. By the end of the decade, the body count list included over 50 names, creating one of the most persistent conspiracy theories in American politics.
Vince Foster, definitely one worth looking into. Wild case. There's another one, I can't remember the guy's name, but he ends up in Arkansas, hanging from a tree by an extension cord, shot in the chest twice with a shotgun, and it's ruled a suicide. How is that even possible? How is that even possible? How do you shoot yourself twice in the chest? It doesn't make any sense at all. And it's ruled a suicide. I mean, that's just crazy to me. The Boys on the Track is back in the day when Clinton was a governor, and is very much tied up with Barry Seal and the cocaine that was being run into the country, and some loose connections to Iran-Contra. There's a lot going on there. Stuff that went down in Mena, Arkansas. Go look at The Boys on the Track. Great documentary available on YouTube by a guy, I think Carnage on Ice. Production value is not the best, but the story is incredibly well researched by this gentleman. It's tragic story. Two young boys get murdered behind some really dark stuff, and it seems like Clinton helped cover it up. That's a documentary I hope one day to kind of watch on live stream or something like that. But yeah, very, very shady things happened here. If you don't know about it or whatever, you think that Clintons are some sort of bastion of good, I mean, you're crazy, you're ignorant. You need to go do the research. Once you see all of the research, you have to ask yourself what's going on here. If you're not, I just don't see how you're operating rationally.
If you don't know who actually owns the news yet, this video is for you. A lot of you probably already know about the big six media conglomerate, that all the news is already owned by just these six media companies, meaning Comcast, Disney. If you don't know who actually owns the news yet, this video is for you. A lot of you probably already know about the big six media conglomerate, that all the news is already owned by just these six media companies, meaning Comcast, Disney, AT&T, Paramount, Sony, and Fox. But those are all publicly traded companies. And if you look up who owns those companies, you'll see some striking similarities. This is Fox, as I circled at the top there. Top institutional holders, that's Vanguard. Third is BlackRock. Looks like fifth is State Street. We'll come back to these guys. I also tried to highlight any big banks. You might notice a few other interesting similarities, but that's 6.9% ownership, nice. 4.6, 3.1. That sounds like small percentages, but those are majority ownerships, meaning that they select the board members, who select the CEOs, who select all the hiring. So these ownerships create their ability to basically influence a company from the top down. This is Paramount. First is Berkshire Hathaway. Then we have Vanguard, BlackRock, State Street, and Morgan Stanley. Huh, nice, a bank. Weird. 9%, 6%, 5%, 2%. Oh, Berkshire Hathaway, though. That's Warren Buffett, right? He's a cool guy. Here's Berkshire Hathaway. Not actually owned by Warren Buffett, and if you actually look into it. Vanguard, BlackRock, State Street, Morgan Stanley, Bank of New York Mellon, which is actually a subsidiary of Bank of America. Majority stakes. Here's Disney, Vanguard, BlackRock, State Street, Morgan Stanley, BNY Mellon. Let's not leave out MSNBC, which is owned by Comcast, Vanguard, BlackRock, State Street, JP Morgan, Chase. Same. Majority stakes. But here's where it gets interesting. I saw Doge and Cox Inc. here as one of the majority owners of Fox, and they're on a few of these other sheets too. So I looked into them. Doge and Cox is a media conglomerate company. Cox Media Group is closely associated, founded by these two families, Cox family being one of them. The Cox Media Group, their parent company is Apollo Global Management that owns 71%. That's kind of weird. Who's Apollo Global Management? Apollo Asset Management is an American global private equity firm founded in 1990 by Leon Black. Interesting. Who owns them? This is Apollo Global Management, APO. Vanguard, BlackRock, Morgan Stanley, State Street. That's weird. Everyone seems to be owned by the same people. I wonder who owns Vanguard, BlackRock, Morgan Stanley, and State Street. It seems like they would have an awful lot of sway over what the public is hearing on the news every night. Weird. We'll dig into that next.
So interesting to see this, because I happen to work for one of the organizations that was talked about in this clip. I'm not going to say which one, but I very recently worked for that company, in fact, like as in a few months ago. No longer there, but yeah, you know, say what you will about this guy, Ian Carroll. If you don't know who he is, Ian Carroll's show, I think, is the TikTok. He's got a YouTube channel as well. Go give him a follow. Definitely some good content here. The thing I want to point out most is that this is what real research looks like, right? Like, there aren't holes in the argument. I'm not saying that there aren't counters to what he's saying, but he's providing you with real information, right? That is based in reality. And he's drawing, or leading you rather, to conclusions based on that research. So, you know, stories, anecdotes, something you read in the New York Times, that's not really that legitimate in my point of view anymore. I mean, used to be you could read articles in the New York Times or whatever and go, okay, this is research. It's not really a research in my opinion anymore. It's propaganda. So unless you're doing this kind of stuff, you're looking at, you know, ownership stakes, you're looking at financials, you're looking at contracts, you're looking at, you know, Edgar's. If you don't know what Edgar's is, go educate yourself. If you're not looking at these types of things, you're not doing real research. And so, again, I'm not saying Ian Carroll is some sort of research savant. This isn't perfect research. There's plenty of issues here, but it's real, far more real than what most people are doing. Like, in the tune of 99.9% of people are not doing even this level of basic research. And he is demonstrating something that, you know, most people should be aware of. There's a very incestuous ownership relationship between all of these companies, and it typically funnels back to hedge funds and banks and mutual funds. And, you know, the counter argument that you'll hear from a lot of people say is, oh, well, Vanguard doesn't own the stock. They manage a mutual fund that is our retirement accounts. Yes, that's true, but, you know, that's a very ignorant counter argument, because it's not about ownership. It's about voting rights, which is what he's talking about, right? So your retirement account, you do not have the right, even though you own stock in, say, MSNBC, through your retirement account, you forego your voting right. If you own your own personal account, you own a share of MSNBC or any company, you get to vote for the board. And that's what Vanguard controls. That's what BlackRock controls. That's what, you know, BNY Mellon control. State Street control is the voting rights. And with those voting rights, they're able to appoint board members. Those board members are the real people who control the company, because they appoint the CEO, the CEO, and often a lot of the C-suite, and the C-suite control the company. So that's how they're able to control these companies and set direction for the company, is through appointing people that are aligned with their objectives. So that's what it's really about. And I think that that's important to know. And like I said, more than anything, this is a great example of what real research looks like.
The shooter, Lee Harvey Oswald, fired from a building, hitting JFK in the neck and head. He was rushed to the hospital, but died 30 minutes later. Oswald was arrested, but got shot and killed on live TV 2 days later. Many believe there was more to the story, but the official report says Oswald acted alone.
So see if we can find one that has the actual seating arrangement, or more accurate seating. Well, the one right there with the red line in the right-hand side, the one on the right-hand side, that's a more accurate.
From above, yeah.
Yeah, from above.
Yeah.
There's also the fact that there was particles there was more metallic particles from the bullets, more fragments from the bullet in Connolly's body than were missing from the bullet. I do not believe that was the bullet, and I think that that is a very reasonable assumption.
Well, you know what you should do? You should get one of those guns, get the same bullets, get some ballistic dummies with some bones inside, and start shooting.
They've already done that.
Yeah,
Penn and Teller did that.
Yeah, but some people have done it, and they have found pretty close to what actually happened.
No, they didn't.
Within.
Yeah, I tend to agree with, that was Joe Rogan's voice. I tend to agree with Rogan on that. I mean, we're talking about something that happened in the 60s, so certainly those types of ballistic experiments have been done. I'm not aware of any that have demonstrated conclusively that what evidence we have from the JFK assassination can be reproduced based on the claims that they're making in the official narrative. I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. We know more about that for sure. Again, this is one of those things I think people get stuck on. Oh, what do you think happened? What do you believe? What do you believe? You don't have to believe anything. The burden of proof is not on the conspiracy theorist or whatever you want to say, right? Like, you could just point out inconsistencies in the narrative, and then that raises the question, well, what really happened then, right? And you don't have to have an answer to that question. You can just point out that the question hasn't been answered fully, right? And I think that there's enough evidence there in the JFK situation where it's pretty clear that Oswald, at a bare minimum, he didn't act alone. Again, I don't know what happened. I don't have a theory on what happened or who did it. And I think a lot of people just get stuck in this place of trying to be the expert and answer all these things. And it's like, you don't have to have the answer. All you have to do is point out that the questions haven't been answered. It's more important, in my opinion, to stick to the questions. Stick to the questions. Stick to the questions, because you can stick with the evidence there at that point. When you start going past the evidence and postulating answers, then you get to a point where now they can poke holes in yours, and you're moving in a direction that is not conducive to getting to a place where we will get answers, real answers based on reality, and not some theory that we're all just conjecturing on. I don't know if conjecturing is a word, but point being is it's not up to us to answer the questions, to come up with the answers. It's up to us to point out that there's still questions that haven't been answered, and that the so-called answers that have been provided are in fact not correct. They're not accurate. They're not based in reality, and stick to that question. Who did it? What are the details, right? Who were the number of shooters? Where were the shooters located? Why don't the ballistics add up? Why was Lee Harvey Oswald transported the way he did? So on and so forth, right? A lot of the same things can be said about, Charlie Kirk incident that we talked about earlier. The ballistics don't make sense. The ballistics don't make sense. Everything else past that is kind of irrelevant. The ballistics don't make sense. So what really went down? Because what you're saying in the official narrative is disproven by hard science through the ballistics. So stick to that question. Ballistics don't make sense. What happened? And I don't think you need to move on from there. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed some of these. We're going to end there for the day. Like, subscribe, comment down below. What are your thoughts on the JFK stuff? I think this is the granddaddy of all conspiracies, in my opinion. It all comes back to JFK. So much changed on that day. November 11th, 1963, the world changed, in my opinion. And I don't think we've ever gone back. And it starts before that. There's plenty of things that happened before that date, but this was the real turning point. And frankly, I think that's when the war was lost, if you want my opinion. It's been downhill from there ever since. And going back to a world pre-JFK, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough, frankly. The best we can do is try and put doubt into the minds of people who refuse to see the truth, to see the way reality really works. And the way you do that is stick to those questions. And I think JFK is one that, again, this is the big one. This is the mother lode. So I'd love to hear people's thoughts on this one. Like I said, like, comment, subscribe. All the engagement helps, much appreciated. We'll be back next week with another one. Thanks.